So it's always a bunch of fun. So we'll see here. Let's see. It is live, and here is the preview. So I think we should almost be good. Let's see. It's a little slow today for some reason. All right. Dun dun dun. Will it go live? I'm just gonna go ahead and hit go live, and we're gonna see what happens. So yeah, awesome, cool. There we go.
I like the way you roll, Nico.
It's my motto is like, you know what, we just gotta progress over perfection. You know what I mean? Like you just gotta go and hope for the best. But yeah, so it looks like we are all good there. So hello everybody, welcome to Design to Dev. This is our interview series here with Zeppelin for community members who make and design beautiful products. Today I have with me here Mark Figueiredo. Mark, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Mark Figueiredo. I run the DesignOps practice team of one for our retirement plan services team at Rowe Price. Luckily, the DesignOps kind of practice is growing as we're getting a handful throughout the company, but it's not centralized just yet, but loving to do that. So I support a bunch of fantastic designers, UX research, as well as content designers as well. I'm also working with our design community here at Rowe Price to work on things like lunch and learns, onboarding, all kinds of fun different programs that we have going on. So it's awesome to be here again with you guys. I was telling you before, I was like, I feel like I'm just a part of the team at this point. We've had so many great sessions, but I love that you all have such a passion for design operations and talking about it, specifically in the wonderful space of designers and developers and like how to make that happen. But that's also kind of your business. So it's good that you guys are doing it.
we gotta bring the product experience online, you know, bring designers, developers, PMs, all of the like all together in one space. So yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, you know, you talked a little bit about sort of like what you do. What does your typical day-to-day sort of look like?
Absolutely. So my day-to-day, it's changed over times. And I think I've struggled with that a little bit where I was like, well, isn't this exactly how it's supposed to be every day? But then over time, I've been with this team and in this role specifically for almost 3 years. I think it's going to be coming up, or maybe more. It goes by very fast, but It's one of those things where you walk into a role and, you know, especially with design operations, if it's new to your company or you're new to the practice, and you're like, okay, well, here's how I've seen other companies do it. And you're like, well, isn't this how it should work for me? And you're like, no, it's actually a bit different. So my role is very specialized. I have an entire background in design and user experience design. So I'm one of those like rare people that move from design into design operations versus kind of like a product management, program manager, project manager kind of role into ops, which happens a lot more. So I have this really great kind of view on the designer experience. So a lot of my day today revolves around supporting the team. A lot of the things I'm doing, especially right now, is focusing on just like capacity planning for the team. We've always been trying to crack that nut and can't quite figure it out, but I'm trying to use the data that we have to try to forecast a little bit, but then I'll work with our product managers as well, kind of figure out what's going on with projects, and then really just helping the teams get up and running. And then I kind of let them go. I'm very lucky that my team as a whole very much respect and own projects. They're not waiting for someone to tell them what to do. They're very proactive. So one thing, you know, that I'm working on right now with them is just kind to solidify the design flow of how we work and work along with our developers as well. How do we get them involved earlier on in the process versus waiting until the wireframes are already done and we're basically ready for handoff? And, you know, they're like, wait a second, what? We're trying to really solve a lot of problems ourselves. So that's where I spend most of my time. And then also just helping people out. I was on a call with someone just before this. They were like, hey, I can't figure out Trello. Can you help me out? And I'm not the official person for it, but being at Rowe for a while and having a lot of these issues and trying to solve a lot of these issues myself, I tend to be a little bit of like design tech support as well for our design community where I can help. I love doing it. Don't get me wrong. And then also I consider myself a great connector. So if someone's like, hey, I don't know this, I'm like, I think I know a person. Let me kind of figure out what that looks like for you. So moving people around. So it's different every single week and every single day, which I personally really like. I have my things I have to get done. And then I, you know, also like to help people out when they need help.
I love that. The great connector comes back again. That was I think we discovered that like
Yeah.
on one of our sessions like a couple of months ago. I don't even, it
Yeah.
might have been a year ago at this
I've
point.
just embodied that now. You know, I think it's a really great thing. At first, I was like, this doesn't make sense. But then when people are like, well, if I don't know the answer, Mark will know the answer. And I'm like, and if I don't know it, I'll find out for you or find a person who might. It works very well when there's like, drama going on at work and someone's like, Mark, do you know a person? I'm like, I think I do. Let's see if we can figure this out. But it's also fantastic, for actual getting work done.
There you go. There you go. Hey, whatever works, and you found something that makes it work, and that's fantastic to see. You mentioned earlier too that you started off as a UX, in design space.
Mhm.
What are some of the core beliefs or experiences that sort of shaped you most as a designer?
I think the things that really help me out the most is stuff I learned in school that you know, I guess my approach has always been a little bit different. Now at this point in my career, I can take a look back a little bit and be like, why did I think about design problems this way back then? Going to school, we always have like those like cliques of people. You have like I always caught on like the font girls. They were like the girl, again, I'm not trying to generalize, but like my school, it was not a whole lot of male people in the design space. It was a lot of females, but there was always a group of girls that just loved fonts and they loved talking about fonts. And every project and I was like, I'm gonna use you as a resource. Like help me, so like to figure those things out.
Yeah.
And then you have kind of the big thinkers that are always like blue skying things and kind of going too far. And for me, the things I always got very excited about was like the very beginning of a process. I remember going to my professor, probably in my junior or senior year of college, and saying, hey, is there a role or a job where you can just go to like a think tank and just think of ideas all the time? She was like, actually, yes, there are jobs like this, because that's how my brain always worked. I love being early on thinking up these ideas, brainstorming, bouncing off of each other. So I
Mhm.
think for me, approaching design as a group activity and not as seeing others as competition has always been a really big part of what I love to do. I remember later on after college meeting up with someone who was really big into Photoshop. He was a photographer and worked in there. And I remember him doing some techniques, and he never wanted to share his techniques with me because he felt as if, well, if I teach you these, then you could potentially take my job or take my clients. And I was like, I'm just trying to learn, I'm trying to share. So it's the same thing for me, like, sharing that knowledge, sharing the way that you like to work. They always say like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, there's like 100 ways to do the same thing. But I
Yes.
love sharing those types of things and understanding what that looks like. So I think really for me, it was accepting that community versus competition approach to things. And that has just been a really big part of the way that I've looked at design, but also, again, bring it into design operations. Like I love sharing my successes. Yes, I had to struggle through that. Yes, I cursed a lot on my end, but like at least I can give you a really well packaged thing now, and you don't have to go through those struggles. So I think in design, it was a very similar thing. Let me help communicate this effectively and efficiently and make sure that we're all on the same page. And that's just always been my approach. I really enjoy that.
I love that. It sounds amazing too. You sort of went from the student to the teacher. So
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Sounds like you are now in the position to inspire folks. But if you had
I
to point to
try.
maybe someone or something, who or what would you say would be your inspiration?
Oh, see, that's so hard because I'm going to give you a very general answer, which is the community. Like I just kind of shared just a second ago.
Yeah.
Like for me, regardless of where you are, I find so much inspiration from the community, especially when you're looking for like new inspiration or trying a new way of doing something. I always like taking a look at what's happening out there. What are people doing? What are people interested? Not so much from a standpoint of always trying to follow a trend, but is there something that you can learn from them, maybe their thought process that can help you and become kind of one of your core values? So I know that's not very specific. I know some people are like, I have this one person that I've looked up to. For me, it's always been a collection of things. I love to work with people who are not type B, that are type A, because they
Yeah.
keep me on track. And then I like to work with other people who are more project driven or design driven, and then bringing those people together. So I don't have someone specifically, but definitely little bits of probably every single person that I've worked with or have had to collaborate with. I kind of find as people I draw inspiration from. Sorry, that's very generic.
It's a fantastic answer. Honestly, that's why I love these more open-ended questions, because you get to know that person a little bit more every single time, because your answer, of course, is completely different from somebody else's, which is beautiful to see. And I love to see that whole range of emotion and answers behind it too. So I appreciate your answer. It was very well thought out, very well researched. Awesome. I have a little fun section now too here where we call overrated or underrated, which, as the name suggests, I will provide you a few different design terms and design related things, and you can tell me if you think they are overrated or underrated.
Okay.
First off, we're going to start with a few fonts. You can just go through real quick. Inter, overrated or underrated?
I think that it is. Oh, see, I have to pick one or the other, right? Because I can't be like, I think it's great. I think that it is underrated.
All right. Helvetica.
I really like Helvetica. It's a great font. I'll say overrated because so many people talk about it. There's literally movies about it, but it's just a great font.
Perfect. And the last one is Papyrus.
Oh gosh. When used correctly, I think it is an underrated font. But that's a fun one. Yeah. Yeah, that's my answer.
Love it. Perfect. The next few are a few design terms. So skeuomorphism, overrated or underrated?
Ooh, that's another one. When done right, I think it is underrated. I think obviously we went from that being a very popular way of design and then moved away from it. But I think if we were to revisit it now as a design community, we could find really fantastic ways to make that work well. I know we're probably, if you're talking about that, we're probably talking about flat design in a hot second. So, I think there's ways to take that and elegantly elevate it to feel more than just flat, but not going so far into there.
I love it. That's fantastic. Naming your layers, overrated or underrated?
Oh, that's do as I say, not as I do. It is an underrated thing that everyone should do, because in the long run, that's going to help the next person coming along that may have to work on that file. So you should do it. I don't always do it. I try.
We appreciate the honesty. The honesty is the best policy. So this is fantastic. A new fun trend or new term that's coming up here is the design engineer. Overrated or underrated?
Design engineer. I don't know that I've heard that one too much.
Yeah, it's like folks who design and code. Basically, people can do both. The design engineer.
Oh, gotcha. I always call them design unicorns. So they have a better name now. I have one of my best friends is that, and they are severely underrated because they are so incredibly helpful and just such an important part of the team, because you can have that conversation with somebody who is able to actually understand both parts of the process. My buddy I would go to all the time when my dads were like, we can't do that. Be like, hey, Matt, I'm trying to do this thing. And I was like, how long does that take? He's like, I mean, maybe a few hours. And I'd be able to go back and be like, hey guys, I think we can figure this out. It's probably should only be a few hours of time. And he would give me references and code. They'd be like, I don't like this. I don't like that you're figuring us out over here. So severely underrated. Everyone should have at least one on your team.
There you go. The great connector strikes again. This is we got to start having a little tally board up here somewhere when I'm editing for how many times. That was fantastic. That was a fantastic little section here. Now I've got now some more interview questions here for you too, just to get to know you a little bit more, your process. So coming from the design ops perspective, how is your relationships with both your designers and your developers, and are there things that could be improved on either side?
Yeah, so it has changed over the years. I've had really good opportunities to work at companies where I could go and talk to my developer. They, sat right by us, even though at that point we weren't doing agile. It was still very waterfall, however we want to call it. I loved being able to go and sit with them and be like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Is this something we could figure out, right? And we would kind of work on it together, or they would kind of get excited about what I was doing and be like, hey, I know we're not ready for this yet, but I was thinking about this, and we could have this great conversation. And then sometimes, like now at work for us, we went from having these full built product teams that were fully integrated inside of Rowe Price to now working with them as kind of a vendor, I'll call them. And that has changed the way the relationship, I think, looks, even though everyone's still doing the same job. I always say, I relate it back to families often, where I'm like, yeah, but now they're answering to new parents, right? When you're working with a development group that has their own manager and leadership team, and then you're working on your side with your designers and leadership teams, if at the very top we're not on the same page and we don't foster that sense of collaboration and camaraderie, if that doesn't really happen, that is a total top down thing. So if it's like, dev, get your stuff done, hit your sprints, do this thing. And over here, we're like, hey guys, want to come to a meeting and have some fun and like figure this out together. When you have those counter things happening at the same time, it creates a lot of just I don't want to say animosity. That's not the right word I'm looking for here, but you're not connected. So I can't invite 4 or 5 developers to a workshop for us to figure this out together because they're being told, you need to be over here and you need to be developing. You don't have the extra time to go join that meeting, when in the long run, right, that hard work up front and dedication would make their jobs easier further down the road. And that's what we're trying to figure out right now for ourselves, right? What's the right level of interactivity early on with developers, but not overburdening them with too many meetings or time, so that they can also develop the things that we're trying to work on. So it's trying to find that balance.
Awesome. Very cool. I hope to hear more about that balance from you. And, ideally you'd be able to document some of it at least, and, what your biggest takeaways, because I feel like that would be a common struggle that most teams would be facing here now.
I'm working on it right now, as a matter of fact.
Who else but the great connector to get us this answer? I'm glad we can all rely on you, so thank you very much.
Sure.
One question too that I wanted to ask you, more specifically related to design ops, is what do you think the role of like a design ops person looks like versus what people outside of the profession think that it looks like?
Sure. So I think outside of the profession, because historically it has been project program managers that are usually in those roles, and a lot of the job functions out there are still that. And there's nothing wrong with that. We'll just say that there's just so many different flavors of design operations. And I think that it's important to understand what you need as a group or a company and finding the right person for that. So outside, it's probably, well, I've had to battle it myself. Well, we don't need a design operator because we have a design leader who is supposed to do those things. But the problem is that the design leader does not have the time to actually lead design and also worry about the business side of design necessarily. Inside, it's definitely communicating and letting people know what it is that you do. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day. They were asking me, hey, I'm running these meetings for my design team, and we're talking about what they're working on during the week. Should I be sharing what I'm doing with as well as a part of this meeting? And I was like, I've got a great answer for you, because it's something that I asked my manager, my boss at the time. And I was like, hey, I'm running these Monday meetings where I talk about capacity and projects and all these things. Am I wasting everyone's time by sharing my stuff? She's like, absolutely not, Mark. Like, you need to share that so that the team knows the value that you're adding to this team. They know that you're doing it because they are seeing it, they're experiencing it, but share those things, because that's really important to let people know, even if it's something as silly as like trying to set up single sign-on for a tool, like just sharing that. It also holds me accountable for it too, because every week they're like, Mark, still working on that single sign-on project. I'm like, it's not out of my hands, but I have to pay attention to it. But just knowing that looks a little bit different for everyone. So what does your team need? How does that change over time? And then can you essentially flex into that and continue to educate yourself in different areas to be that resource for your team? Even if you are not 100%, I'm doing 2 things. I just took a project management class. I'm currently reading this great book, which is called Project Management for Humans, just to further educate myself on how to do that a bit better, because my background is in design, not necessarily like core project management. So, but how can I use some of those techniques and those skills to then further help my team out? And exactly like I'm saying, trying to solve this this approach to how we get our work done, and milestones and check-ins and all that other fun kind of stuff.
I love that. That's fantastic. You sort of touched on this too a little bit in your answer before about, how every role is sort of individualized and every company does have different needs. With that being said, what do you think the future of design ops looks like for everybody?
Mhm. I think it's going to continue to evolve and grow depending on the team's needs, right? I think we saw this a lot in the overall like the tech space, right, where they hired a bunch of people because we saw a lot of money coming in, and those roles also happen to be design operation roles, as well as design and development and other things like that. And then when things slowed down, we kind of saw, the negative side of overhiring, right, with a lot of layoffs. And I've seen a lot of people from the ops community, right, that are like, hey, now I'm looking for something, how do I find something in operations? And I think the two things that have been really great about this is one, the community is here for it. I always share that. I think the design ops community, because they're all like me, right? We love connecting people. We love sharing. We love educating. We love helping everyone succeed. So it's always, I'm sharing out jobs to people that I'm like, hey, like this seems really cool. And they're like, Mark, are you looking? I'm like, no. I love my job. Like, don't get me wrong. I'll share something and somebody be like, hey, I saw you share this on LinkedIn. We good? And I'm like, no, I'm great. I'm just trying to help somebody else out. I think there's a really big part of that community though, which is really strong. But then also, like I said, the kind of crafting and sharing your experiences and what you're good at when you're looking for these new roles. And sometimes I feel like maybe it's good to start from ground zero if you're coming into a brand new company that has never had operations, and you have so many of these resources that you can use to like help someone else set up. But then there's also just, I think, a really big benefit to like going into a really big company that has it. I sometimes have these dreams of that, where I'm like, it would be great to grow this team and have other people and not just be a team of one. But at the same time, there's just a lot of opportunity there. So I think it's very much finding kind of your spot, what you're good at, and then continuing to communicate that. And then also paying attention to your team and the larger teams too. I always have to remind myself sometimes to be a little selfish for my own team to solve our problems before I go and solve other teams' problems. But I think that as long as you continue to show that value, the operations role as a whole will just continue to grow, and hopefully you'll be seen as more of a multifaceted problem solver than just like very specific into your space, which I think maybe it's the return of the jack of all trades kind of thing versus the expert in one specific thing. Every operator that I've ever known in ops, you have to do it all, so you just kind of
Yeah.
figure it out.
There you go. Just figure it out. With that being said, do you think AI is going to help with that transition, is going to help more
Oh,
people figure it out? Like, what are your thoughts around AI in general in the field
sure.
of design ops?
So in design operations, find it to be incredibly helpful, because so much of the stuff that everyone hates to do, you do a survey of 500 people, and usually you'd have to go through and manually go through each and every one of those. Right? I love the fact that you can utilize that and kind of make that stuff that nobody wants to do, we're literally giving it to someone else to do or
Yeah.
something else to do it. A lot of conversation in the general design space around AI and what that looks like. But I think with anything, you have to find the right way to use it. It's not going to replace your job. I think that no matter what, no matter how amazing Chat GPT is, and now there's inflection in its voice as it tells you the answers, I think that's great, but nothing is going to replace that human to human interaction that you have. No computer can understand empathy. It can emulate empathy, but I don't think that it's going to ever get to a point where you can have a conversation with an HR chatbot and it's going to be able to make you feel good about the decision that you're making, or help you understand that it's okay to feel this way and how can I help you. I think the same thing with operations. You're not going to be able to ask a bot or AI bot like, hey, I'm having this issue with my developer right now and I'm not really sure how to make this better, and it's going to be able to understand your space, the people around you, the inputs and the outputs to be able to help problem solve that. So like, I'm not worried about that, but it can totally handle, doing all kinds of fun stuff on the research side for me all day long.
There you go. There you go. That's a fantastic answer. And I think it echoes a lot of the sentiment that I've been seeing as well too, of it's just another tool. It's another tool that everybody can learn to use better. You know, you got to put in the work to make sure that, like you said, you are using it efficiently and correctly for what you need. But at the end of the day, it'll just be something that, you know, will help us out in the same way the calculator did.
Yeah.
So I like to think about it like that, not so much of like the other side of that spectrum of like, it's coming for your job and it's doing this. And
I mean, if a chatbot can do your job better than you can, then maybe it should. You know, like I feel like maybe you're just not doing enough, or again, you need to broaden your skills a little bit more than just that piece. Like, it's one thing just to press a button, you know, and type the same email every single day. Yes, that can be automated. There should be parts of our jobs that we can automate, but I don't think anyone's job, no matter what, should ever be fully automated. Yeah. Not on a side tangent here, but I was just looking at it because I think fast food restaurants are starting to put like chat GPT automation into like their drive-throughs. Or, you know, my wife walked into a McDonald's the other day and there was no person that you could go to. It was only these computer screens that, you know, these computer, I sound like an old fogey, these computer screens on the thing. There's only these like interactive tablets and things that you can work with now. And she's like, one, I don't want to touch those. They look disgusting. And two, like the interface has to be great for any average person to be able to use that and interact with it. It has to be easy. It's always been that way in design, regardless if it's chat GPT or otherwise. And like you said, you have to educate yourself on it and know how to really work with it. I think it's doing really smart things, especially around content creation or giving you an idea, but at no point should you expect it to write something for you, because that's, again, it's taking your personal emotion, your soul out of what's happening, you know?
Yeah, I like that. I think I always say Microsoft has my favorite name for their AI. They call it Copilot. I'm like, that's a fantastic way to think about it. Of like somebody you can, you know, bounce ideas off of, get help on something else too, like something quick that you can just be like, hey, I just want a quick little reference check. I can ask this thing now. So that's awesome. Great. Very cool. Well, thank you very much. That sort of wraps up our interview portion. I've got a few rapid fire questions, and then we've got our fun activity at the very end. So I've got 4 rapid fire questions for you here. You can, you know, take a few seconds to think about it. No worries. The first one is, if you had to guess, how many rectangles do you think that designers have created?
Ever? Trillions. I don't know.
Do you have an exact number you would like to give?
1.7 trillion.
There you go. All right. There we've had numbers all the way from like hundreds of billions all the way up to like infinity. So I think, you know, there's quite a scale I'm trying to establish.
That's a designer's favorite shape.
Exactly. If you had to describe your design process in just 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
Understand, collaborate, execute.
I love that. If you could describe design ops in 1 word, what would that 1 word be?
Great hyphen connections.
Well, I'm listening to the judges, and they say that we'll allow the hyphen.
Good. I don't know if it's grammatically the correct place to use it, but anytime I can elongate something more than just 1 word, I'm going to go for it.
There you go. And then last question for you is, if you could describe yourself in just 1 word, what would that word be?
I just did an activity on this. Kind.
I love it. All right. That was fantastic. It was funny. I asked that question to my crew too one time, and the response that I got was not that. It was like, oh my God, that's the most existential question I've ever heard. Like I need a few months to think about that. And I was like, oh, okay.
I looked over here. I just did this activity at a conference I was at. A person was talking about how to embody elegance. And it was, you know, what are 3 words that you want people, when you're engaging with them, they want to experience from you. So I put kind, funny, and creative on there. And it was really great, because it's not just about like how do you want to be seen. So like, I want to be seen as a kind person. There's a lot that you can unpack there, I'm sure, but like more than anything, know I'm here for a good reason.
I love it. That's fantastic. That was probably the lightest and most fun note to end on for the actual interview portion. So I really appreciate that. Now we are moving into our segment called "So You Think You're a Designer," where we put your design skills to the test, where you try to recreate the Zeppelin logo using Microsoft Paint. So if you want to, feel free to share your screen, and as soon as you start, I will start the countdown. You have just 2 minutes. 2 minutes if we want to get the little Mac gesture in here to create your drawing. So whenever you want to start, feel free to go, and you can feel free to talk us through your process, do whatever you need.
Sure. You're able to see it, right?
Able to see it. Looks good.
Okay, so my design process is what I learned way back in the day, which is we're going to sketch out lightly, and then we're going to kind of go from there. And this is really hard because I also am a big trackpad user, and a mouse would have been great. And then I was telling you before that I am color deficient, which means a lot of these colors look the same. So we'll see.
This is a beautiful take on the Zeppelin logo already so far. So I'm very excited to see where we go.
I can't find orange because I think your thing is orange. It's like a nucleus kind of thing.
Beautiful.
And then we can't forget the little propeller things on the back.
Perfect. Right? And you have 1 more minute.
Oh, I have a ton of time. Oh, they didn't connect that. Well, now the background is also.
I think you can Command Z. I think you can. I believe you can. The last time I checked.
Oh, thank goodness. I was like, I don't know the last time I had to use MS Paint. Can you imagine if this is really how we had to design again? Like, not design again, but like think about the crap that we used to do in this.
I think it's a fun challenge to, we should maybe issue that challenge for a week, a week in like October or something. And
everybody like, go back.
Yeah, everybody do your design work for a whole week in Microsoft Paint. We'll see how it goes.
All right. I think that's about everything. Yeah. I don't think you have a little, holder at the bottom of your thing here, whatever that would be, the compartment. So you've got a flattened lemon. That has flies flying around it or something. I don't know.
I love it. Honestly, I think it's perfect. And you finished in time too. So this is beautiful. So if you can just go to once we're done too, you can file, export, and send that to me. I like to keep them. I want to eventually make like a big quilt of them and have like a fun little memento to remember it by. And
oh my gosh, you're gonna do these in the future with it like wrapped over your shoulders when it's cold, and they'll be like, "What is all over you? Have you lost your mind?" Yes, I have.
So far, I'm like, these are my favorite things that I've ever seen. It's just the people's recreation in Microsoft Paint of the logo. I'm like, yes, I need more of this. How do I do more? So I thought, why not include it here? But that wraps up our time. So I wanted to thank you again, Mark, for your time and for all of your incredible answers. It was such a fantastic conversation. So I also too wanted to give you a chance to plug anything that you'd like. Mark your pages, do all of the fun things too. You've got some really fun things going on, so I would love to give you the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, no, I wish I had really fun stuff going on. All of the fun stuff is probably stuff that other people don't find fun, and it's nothing like a plug. I wish I was like, I should be sharing stuff more out like publicly, after I solve these problems, but I feel like sometimes it's very specific to like my teams and like our design community problems, but then you share it with like 1 or 2 other people and you realize everyone else is having the same issue. I think my favorite thing is at conferences and these other conversations and panel discussions, you're like, yeah, this is a small problem that I have, and everyone's like, but that's my problem too. How do I solve it? And you're like, I have a chance to share all this great information with you. Great. So it would be cool to kind of maybe share that, but I wish I had more going on, Nico. I don't. I think I'll be chatting with you guys in like a week or 2 for another panel discussion. That's the only outside of my team thing going on right now. So that'll be a super fun conversation. But other than that, this was the highlight of my day. So sorry to be so boring.
That is fantastic. I will try to once I do share these out later too. I will link out, if you want me to your Mark your pages and everything too. I think it's amazing. It's a great project that you've got going on too. So I want to try to get as many people into.
It keeps me organized. I think more than anything, like bullet journaling has been a really major part of my life, from like keeping all the things together and giving me these ways to like get work done. But it's very much a hobby thing, like anything socially sharing it. But I mean, I use it every single day, and it's fun writing with fountain pens and actually writing down ideas in notebooks versus going straight digital or to a Miro board or something else. So,
Yes.
everyone's process looks a bit different. I think that, I learned that in school, like, when they teach you to draw a logo first or teach you to create a logo inside of Photoshop before they introduce you to Illustrator, you're like, wait, why didn't we start there? Or I remember my Illustrator class, like at the end, they taught us about Live Trace. I'm like, why didn't we start with Live Trace versus individually creating 3D models inside of Illustrator? But that process is obviously the reason they do it that way. So that's how I like to work. So yeah.
I love it. And we do have one comment from our very own Josh. He mentioned, if you could do an overrated, underrated for Moleskin, what would you say?
Oh, overrated, severely overrated. Don't. I mean, I don't want to burn a bridge there or anything, but like, there's better notebooks.
There you go. All right. Good to know. Thank you, Josh, for your question. And with that, I'll go ahead and say goodbye to everybody. Thank you again, Mark, and I hope you have a great day, and we will talk in a week.
Sounds good. See y'all later. Thanks so much.
See you soon. Thank